Progress for women means progress for all, and it actually means sustained progress for both men and women and our economies.
Significant level of inequality between women and men and girls and boys persists globally.
If you don't realize the rights of women, then transformation and economic transformation will never be realized.
Rights are never acquired by simple asking for it.
UN Women, the United Nations entity for gender equality and the empowerment of women, officially launched its flagship report, Progress of the World's Women 2015 to 2016, in Nairobi on 27th April, whose theme was Transforming Economies, Realizing Rights. The report focuses on the economic and social dimensions of gender equality, including the right of all women to a good job with fair pay and safe working conditions, to adequate social services and a life without discrimination.
And many women and girls experience multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, vulnerability, and marginalization throughout their life cycle. Following a regional review of progress of the Beijing Platform for Action, the African Union declared 2015 as the year for women's empowerment and development towards Africa's Agenda 2063. This is in recognition of the critical role that women can and have played in the continent's development and of the need for deliberate action to ensure that women are facilitated to be proactive agents of change for the continent's development.
This report focuses on the economic and social dimensions of gender equality, including the right of all women to a good job with fair pay and safe working conditions, to adequate social services, and, of course, a life without discrimination.
The report proposes a comprehensive agenda for policy actors, including gender equality advocates, national governments and international agencies, to make human rights a reality for all women and girls, with emphasis on the economic and social dimensions of gender equality, such as substantive equality for women, transforming work for women and girls, making social policy for women, and creating an enabling microeconomic environment. As part of the launch, a panel discussion from Kenyan government, UN agency and development partners discussed the issues within the report and proposed possible responses.
30 years ago, there was a famine of biblical proportions in Ethiopia. Today, Ethiopia is a different place. Tell us about it and how women have contributed to that.
Ethiopia, for example, women have been able to access finance, been able to yield more better products, and they've been able to organize themselves in groups. This has meant that women are moving and producing more better yield, which is actually more substantive and of better quality. And with this, they're able to build the economy.
I think we need to continuously invest in women's organizing, because until we harvest our collective power, and this is what working with the Champions for Transformative Leadership has taught me, we really have to organize.
For instance, as the report says, that there's an important distinction between substantive rights and the formal rights. In Kenya, if you talk about our constitution, it's there, both in terms of the equality of people and equality inheritance. The big question we are debating right now is women's representation. And that again is something that we claim that the Constitution is not clear about. I think it is very, very clear about what we need to do. And that is obviously we need to provide specific quotas for women to be able to fill.
I think the political goodwill is there. Is there tweaking that has to be done? Probably yes, in situations like those. We still need a lot more public participation and education, awareness for people to understand.
For issues that we consider social, such as violence against women and in the households and everywhere else, should be considered economic penalties. When we are violent with each other, we are actually undermining our own economic growth.
The patriarchy and the patronage of political parties. We need to do something about political parties.
With this report, we have enough data to ensure that we work on macroeconomic policies and see how we can implement them at the grassroots level, as well as work with institutions and private sector to enable women's friendly environment, and also look into policies that are more gender friendly.
That you create decent jobs for men and women, not just any kind of job, but decent jobs that afford people the ability to live a decent life with basic rights being realized.
Women have done well. Where we started way back in 1992, especially in this country, when women decided that they were going to run for office. Little did we know that only 20 years we could be where we are. You know, looking at what has come out from this book that we have just launched today, we must continue building capacity of women.
There's a lot of work that's going on at county level in Kenya. The national government is also doing work around women economic empowerment. There's a strategy that's being developed at the moment. But sometimes you feel that a lot is lost because each part of the government is pulling differently. So it's important to really coordinate and harmonize things.
During the launch, most speakers pointed out that women's presence in decision-making at all levels is limited, and emphasized the need to harness the otherwise undervalued potential of women who make up half of the population.
When you talk about transforming economics, today Kenya, 26% of GDP is on agriculture. Forget about flowers and pineapples and little coffee and tea. The rest is all done by women in this country, and yet is never recognized. So I think that there is a necessity that you people join up to stand up and speak about the rights, speak about that what you can do. And there is all the capabilities within you.
Unfortunately, many of our countries are not developing fast enough because we have neglected bringing women to the center of our development. Well-designed social protection and social services can narrow gender gaps in poverty rates, can enhance women's income security, and contribute to the reduction and redistribution of unpaid care and domestic work.
It is high time now, against the background of the Sustainable Development Goals and the fight for the independent goal of the gender equality agenda, that we also put the finances and the resources where it matters.
The report concludes that to obtain substantive equality in the world, women's rights must be actualized, and economic and social policies must work in tandem as an agenda for action.
You know, with the right mix of economic and social policies, governments and private sector can generate decent jobs for women and men and ensure that the unpaid care work that goes into sustaining all economies is recognized and supported. Macroeconomic policies should pursue a broader set of goals, including gender equality and social justice. And well-designed social policies can enhance economic growth.
The rights can only be received provided you are prepared to stand up and ask for it. Then and then, the macho men will start realizing that it is very difficult and it is not possible. And when you really look at Kenya, I think 70% or 80% of work is being done by a woman at home. And yet, it's never recognized.
A framework for action is also needed to help redress women's social economic disadvantages, such as stereotyping, stigma, and violence. This will strengthen women's agenda and increase their participation all over the world.
UN Women is just only putting a little spark of a fire in you. You need to have the fire in your belly to make this happen. If you don't have that fire in the belly, it'll never happen.
We are recognizing that there has been progress in terms of women's access to employment. However, most of that employment is informal. In sub-Saharan Africa, for example, 89% of women who are working in paid employment are in the informal sector.
The absence of women does not create progress for the world. And we can't articulate this any more than what we have.